Days passed, and although Sangmuchun tried to avoid it, the rumor spread that Sage Chungjai had been defeated by the five-peaked bandits. In a cafe in Henan province, some men are discussing this rumor, some are convinced, and others have many doubts. One of them talks about Jiaka and says that the boy is very strong and that thanks to him, they were able to defeat the sage. But another says that they might have been mistaken and the man they defeated was not the sage. At another table, there was a man who interrupted the conversation of the others, saying that he believed that Jiaka could have beaten the sage of the Wudang sect. The men turned to look at him, and when asked why, he said that he replied that he had faced the boy and defeated him. The man was the demon Li Muryong, and then, introducing himself, he told the men that the boy's moves were very good and that he did not know if there was anyone who could beat him. Other men who heard Li Muryong approached the group and confessed to having been defeated by the boy as well. After that day, everyone knew that there was no one capable of fighting against the five-peaked fortress and its 10 heroes. Nearby, there were some leaders of the bandit union commenting on the rumors, a little astonished, because 2 of them had visited them and remembered that they were only 7 and that they had accepted them, on the condition that they would reach at least 10. One of the leaders believed that they did not deserve to be part of the Green Forest organization and decided that he would go to visit them. At the Fortress of the Five Peaks, the 10 heroes were welcoming back all those who had left. One of them knelt down to ask for forgiveness and thought he would be beaten by the chief, but he just smiled and hugged him. Behind the chief was the second brother, who believed that he had forgiven them very easily, but the older brother believed that they needed the support of as many warriors as they could, because the other bandit strongholds in the Green Forest might attack them, believing that they were not worthy to be part of them. Gamyeong, the second brother, thought a little about what his boss told him and remembered that no one from the Green Forest had come to help them when the sage Chungjai attacked them. Pungyeoncho reminded his brother that soon there would be a Green Forest summit and that, to be recognized as part of them, they should participate and show their skills, also saying that, when they had to go, they needed people to protect their fortress, so they should accept everyone, and Gamyeong understood his boss. Pungyeoncho continued to ask his brother about Jiaka, and he told him that the boy had gone to the forest to look for the sage. In the forest, the sage was meditating when he received a message brought by a pigeon, and as he was reading it, Jiaka approached him. In the message he said that he should return quickly to his sect, because his absence would mean a bad example for the young people. Jiaka, a little angry, asked the sage if he would return to his sect, and the sage looked at him with a smile. Sage Chungjai stands in the forest in front of Jiaka and, smiling, says to him, "Back, it has been a long time since I have taken a break, so I'm thinking of enjoying this experience before I go back." The boy did not understand what the sage was telling him and thought he might attack them again. But the sage noticed his concern and explained that he wanted to train alone, to improve his technique of the mystic sword of Taiji, because, although he had learned it 30 years ago, he had failed to overcome the limits of the last 3 movements. Jiaka looks at him with more curiosity and asks what are those last 3 movements, and the sage replies that he wants to learn from him. Jiaka is amazed by what he heard but warns the sage that he cannot teach him the technique of his fortress, the demon-killing blade, because it was taught to him by his brother Gamyeong. The sage thought a bit about what the boy told him and replied that although he wanted to learn the technique, he didn't need it. What he wanted was to learn from Jiaka while he trained. Jiaka, listening to him, asked him if he thought it was necessary, and the sage said yes, and that he could also win if he let him watch him, and at once he raised his fist and brought it quickly to Jiaka's face, breaking the bamboo plants behind him. Jiaka was amazed by the technique and asked him how he had done it. The sage smiled and told him that he could teach him, but he had one condition. He wanted Jiaka to advise him, and he, in return, would tell him how to improve his technique, because, although he was already very strong, he had not yet been able to use the full power of his technique, and that was because, according to the sage, Jiaka had not learned the basic theories of martial arts, and, with that, his level would improve a lot. After making his proposal, the sage extended his hand to Jiaka and asked him if he would accept the deal. And so the 2 men trained together for several days. One day, when they were on their way to the five-peaked fortress, they met some children playing, and the sage greeted them warmly. But Jiaka kept his distance and, as they walked away, asked the sage if he liked children, because he did not want them. The sage asked him why he didn't like children, if they were so young and innocent, and Jiaka replied that he didn't know what he was saying, because children played pranks and harassed people, as he recalled his first mother's children and his life before he came to the five-peaked fortress. After some thought, Jiaka added that, in the five-peaked fortress, everything was better because everyone was kind, regardless of their age. The sage listened carefully to Jiaka and said that he also did not imagine that in a green forest fortress, people would be so kind. Jiaka thought that place was no more than any other place to live, and he did not think there was much difference and told the sage so. Chungjai, hearing this, thought he had always been wrong about people living in fortresses and smiled. Gyaka and the sage parted, and when the sage was already approaching the fortress, he saw Kiyon picking up some pieces of wood to take them to the house and decided to help her. Kiyon felt uncomfortable and told the sage that she found him a strange man, because the elders she had met were not kind, nor did they help the young people. On the contrary, the young people were supposed to take care of them. Chungjai, after listening to her, told her that he also had some prejudices against the mountain bandits and that, at least, in the Five Peaks Fortress, he had seen good things. He believed it was a good place. The girl understood immediately what the wise man was saying and answered that in the other fortresses there were only thieves and that in this one there were people who had fled because it was hard to make a living and she was there because they had wanted to sell her. But she felt protected there. The chief only wanted to help those who came to the fortress of the Five Peaks and Gyaka always protected them all. The sage wanted to know how Gyaka had come to that place, so he asked Kiyon and the girl told him that she did not know details, but she had been told that the chief had saved Gyaka from dying and had taken him to the fortress. The sage, listening to her, understood the boys need to risk his life to protect them and told the girl that he believed Gyaka saw them all as his family. As they spoke, the girl and the sage continued on their way. Elsewhere, the lunar fairy was rewarding one of her warriors for becoming a great demon general, and after rewarding him, she told her warriors that she believed that, after 20 years of being defeated, the time was near when she would defeat them all and see them all at her feet. In Hejia's restaurant, 5 men are sitting, ordering food and talking about the Five Peaks Fortress. They believe that the comments about the latest victories of that group of bandits are exaggerated, and that it has given the fortress an undeserved fame. One of them, Yonggak, believed that Gyaka should have been defeated by now and that there should be no one in the fortress, but that they were still there and all those who had abandoned them, except the 5 of them, were there again. A little annoyed, he thought that with that last victory, his last hope of becoming the chief of the fortress had been lost. One of the 5 men is curious about what they should do, because they think they can be accepted back, like the others, but they could no longer occupy high positions, as they had planned, because Gyaka was not defeated. Another man says that he would rather go back to the Five Peaks Fortress than try going to the Crimson Wind Fortress. The man believes that if they say they left to protect the fortress, they will accept them easily, but Yonggak believes that Gyaka will not allow them to return. After eating, Yonggak decides to go to the fortress to find out if they can accept him, and when he arrives, he sees everyone staring at him and hears them muttering about his group. How could they be there if they had been the first to leave the fortress? The group heard the comments and told their leader that the people didn't see them well and that made them uncomfortable. Yonggak, seeing his companion, tells him not to worry, that the opinion of others does not matter, they should only care about what the chief of the fortress says and that they would tell him that they had not really left the fortress. Already very close to the fortress wall, one of them believes that they have tried to sow right in front of the wall, because of the big marks on the ground. But Yonggak tells him that it is not so, that those marks were made by a martial arts technique and that he believes that only Gyaka could have made them, but that it is not a mark left by his technique. As the 5 men advance, he realizes who they are and asks them what are they doing there. Yonggak hears him and gets annoyed but realizes that the one talking to him is Cholson, who tells them that he is now their superior. Pung Yoncho is in the Harmony Pavilion when one of his brothers announces the visit of the 5 men. Pung Yoncho thinks about what they tell him and believes that he should be received. But the second brother tells him that they should not accept him because he was the first to leave and tell them all to leave the fortress. Pung Yoncho acknowledges that the man had caused a lot of commotion that day but believes that he is very powerful and that someone like him can be of help in the fortress. While Pung Yoncho and the second brother decide if they should accept Yonggak back. He and Cholson are fighting outside, because the newcomer does not want to be inferior to Cholson. During the fight, Yonggak notices that his opponent has improved his technique a lot and Cholson tells him that it has been thanks to Gyaka's training him. Yonggak acknowledges his progress, but thinks he still cannot beat him and, after 2 moves, puts him on the ground and tells him he better stay there, so he will not hurt him. But the man doesn't want to be beaten by someone who ran away when he was needed and continues to fight. Yonggak prepares to make a lethal move, but he senses someone asking him to stop and just using 2 fingers, he immobilizes him. Yonggak wants to see who has stopped him and, astonished, he realizes that there is another person as strong as Gyaka, who advises him not to use such strong techniques inside the fortress. Cholson asks him to let them continue, but the sage sees him and tells him that he must learn to recognize the differences in ability, because that man was much stronger than him. Cholson is angry and claims the sage for intervening. But when he says his name, Yonggak realizes who he is and asks him directly if he is the sage Chungjai of the Wudang sect, and the man says yes and introduces himself. Yonggak is very impressed and thinks about the rumors about the last victory of the fortress. The sage really had been defeated by Gyaka. A while later, Gyaka arrives and sees Yonggak. But upon greeting him, he only tells him that when he returns, he should be prepared for what is to come. Yonggak is very upset because Gyaka, upon seeing him, met him with a blow and hurt his arm. He just wants to take revenge on the boy for hitting him and tells himself that one day he will pay him back for that hit. Suddenly, he feels a great energy, and when he approaches to find out who is the owner of that energy, he realizes that it is the sage Chungjai and Jiaka, who are training. Seeing this, Yonggak is amazed. He finds it incredible to see a duel between a sage of the Wudang sect and a simple bandit. The sage and Jiaka are fighting, and as they do so, they enjoy watching each other's moves and brag about their progress. Suddenly, the sage threw an impressive move, which pushed Jiaka hard, and Yonggak thought he had defeated him. But to his surprise, the boy was on his feet and excited by that last move of the sage. Yonggak was impressed and thought the boy was indestructible, but he kept quietly watching. Jiaka, still excited, tells the sage that now he too will get serious in that fight, and the sage stands on guard to receive his attack. The boy tells him that he will no longer use the demon-killing blade technique to confront him and performs the second form of the art of the 9 heavens, the ultimate dragon ascension. Yonggak does not believe what he is seeing. The boy split the heavens. At the end of his move, Jiaka is excited because he feels that the technique came out better than he expected, and the sage congratulates him for his breakthrough. He tells him that if he had hit him head-on with that technique, he would have turned into ashes, and that, as always, he had surprised him. Jiaka asks the sage not to congratulate him so much because he is very strong and knows that he has not shown him all his techniques. The sage smiles and tells him that he thinks he should not teach him anymore because he does not want to lose all the confidence he has worked so hard to build. After this, the sage extends his hand and says goodbye to the boy, thanking him for allowing him to gain so much enlightenment. Jiaka is a little upset because he was liking the way things were going and he wanted to continue, but the sage tells him that he thinks it is time to go back to his sect to defend his position as an elder, and that if he gets injured, he is going to have to stay longer. The boy understands and goes over to shake his hand. Sage Chungjai says goodbye, thanking everyone in the fortress for their kindness, and tells him that he wants to return the favor in the future. The sage left satisfied that he had made great advances in the young Jiaka's technique and that he was able to advance his own technique. A few days later, the sage left the fortress very early, but a new visitor was about to arrive. This new man was very happy with the scenery of the mountain of the 5 peaks, and while drinking water, he thought he should protect himself from the beasts of the forest, when, suddenly, a huge bear appeared in front of him. This bear was a female, mother of 2 cubs that the man had killed a brief time before for crossing his path. When the bear attacked the man, he thought that the bear was a fool because he was the ruler of the Yin Wind, and after some thought, he developed a technique to confront the bear. The leader of the Demon Lord Part Heaven's hideout, named Seok Muhi, has been famous since he appeared in the martial arts world for not being defeated even once, but before he was famous, Seok Muhi used to be an employee of the Shaolin Temple. He wanted to learn martial arts, but as he did not want to be bald, and although he had great skills, his destiny was not to be a Buddhist. One day, Seok Muhi found a worn-out statue of Buddha in an abandoned warehouse of the Shaolin Temple and started to clean it very carefully, believing that he could learn martial arts if he cleaned it well. But while cleaning it, the statue broke, and inside it, Seok Muhi found an ancient book called Asura's Scriptures of Dark Heaven. Seok Muhi devoted himself to reading the ancient book and learning about it as he traveled around the country, and soon after, he became the leader of the Bandit Union hideout and caused chaos in the martial arts world. After a while, he chose the 12 best warriors as disciples and passed on the scriptures of Asura of Dark Heaven, causing fear everywhere, even in the 7 sects and the 2 schools. At the 5 Peaks Fortress, the warriors announced that a visitor had arrived from the Bandit Union. The man introduced himself as one of the direct disciples of the Demon Lord Heaven Part and asked for the chief of the fortress. The man's name was Seok Muhi, the Yin Wind sovereign of the 12 demon kings. After introducing himself, he asked everyone to come out at once to greet him. All the heroes of the 5 Peaks, except Jiaka, came out to greet him, and Seok Muhi notices that one of the top 10 warriors is missing and asks for him. The leader, Pung Yoncho, quickly replies that Jiaka is training alone and that is why they had not been able to call him. The visitor doesn't like the answer and hopes that they will be able to call him soon. While the others attend to Seok Muhi, some of the 10 heroes of the 5 Peaks whisper about Jiaka. He is not training, he is asleep, but the visitor cannot know because there could be trouble if he did not show respect to the sage of the Wudang sect. Much less was he going to respect a disciple of the Bandit Union, and that could end badly with a fight between Jiaka and the visitor. Seok Muhi continues to talk to the leaders of 5 Peaks Fortress and tells them that they need to work hard not to let the Bandit Union's name go bad, and that he had gone to make sure everything was okay over there. Pung Yoncho listens to him carefully and proposes to take him to a comfortable place to rest, but the man interrupts him and asks him to introduce him to the 2 women in the group. Pung Yoncho is a little nervous and introduces the 2 girls, saying they are the 9th, Kiyon, and the 10th, Sobik, and at once he offers her something to eat, but the man asks for silence and looks with interest at the girls. who were accompanied by Chulson. Pung Yoncho notices the way Seok Muhi looks at the girls and thinks they should leave immediately. And together with the second brother, they try to take Seok Muhi away from the fortress to a restaurant in the village. But Ki-yeon asks the visitor the reason for his visit, and he is touched by the girl's beauty and way of speaking and tells her that he is there for work, to test if they deserve to carry the bandit union flag, and if they were not qualified, he should eliminate them. Seok Muhi goes on to say that the elite 10 of the 5 peaks have earned the respect of the people in Henan province, and that is good for the bandit union. Therefore, he thinks it would be a pity to eliminate them all, because he believes that some of them are talented. To culminate with his speech, the man says that after what he had seen and heard, he was going to recognize the 5-peak fortress as part of the bandit union, and showing a scroll, he invites them to the bandit union tournament that was going to be held in October in Gangnam. When the chief opens the scroll, he reads from the invitation that the tournament they had been invited to sought to unite all the fortresses that were part of the bandit union in order to defeat the 7 cults and the 2 orthodox schools. After reading, the chief was very proud to finally be recognized as part of the bandit union. Seok Muhi tells everyone that he has done his job and now he wants to be given a drink. Pung Yoncho calls his second brother and proposes that they finally take their visitor to take safe care of him, and together they take him out of the fortress to prevent Jiaka from waking up. At the restaurant, Pung Yoncho, Gamyung and their visitor, Seok Muhi, are already seated enjoying the food, and the 2 brothers from the fortress ask Seok Muhi if he likes it. But the man only thinks of the 2 girls from the fortress, and although the brothers try to distract him and propose to take him to have fun somewhere else, he demands that he only wants to see the 2 girls from the fortress, bring them to him. The 2 brothers muttered about what they should do, and finally, Pung Yoncho tells Pung Yoncho that he doesn't think the girls want to enter the place where they are, because it is a bar. But the man insisted, and seeing that they would not take them, he angrily returned to the fortress and, furious, told the brothers that if he did not see them, he would destroy the 5 Peaks fortress. Upon arriving at the fortress, Seok Muhi, drunk, starts shouting for the girls, while the 2 brothers ask him to lower his voice, and everyone in the fortress comes out of their rooms because of the noise. When he sees the girls, Seok Muhi asks them to come to him and prepare a table with drinks for him, but again the chief of the fortress and the second brother try to take him somewhere else. Seok Muhi feels offended and threatens them again to wipe out the fortress. Pung Yoncho asks him again to accompany them and tells him it is for his own good, and Seok Muhi doesn't believe him and, even angrier, shouts louder, demanding to be served and insulting everyone. Suddenly, a voice is heard asking who is making so much noise at that time of the night. Everyone turns around, and it was what the brothers feared. Jiaka had woken up. Seok Muhi is shocked and annoyed this new man is talking, who tells him that if he is drunk, he should go to sleep, and furthermore asks him what is he doing invading the fortress and making so much noise. Jiaka was not seen among so many people, and the man, angered by his words, sends him to come closer to punish him for offending him, and the boy comes closer. Jiaka confronts Seok Muhi and asks him how he is going to punish him. And the man, astonished, asks in an insulting tone who is that boy, but no one answers him. Everyone is like statues, waiting for the worst. Jiaka again asks the man what he intends to do to punish him. Seok Muhi, after hearing him, decides to calm down and ignore him. He believes that not everyone in the fortress is smart, and this boy is one of them, so he turns his back on him and leaves. Jiaka took it as an insult from that man to turn his back on him and asked him if he was afraid of him. The man turned around even angrier than before, and everyone, especially the chief and the second brother, were lamenting what was about to happen and asked the boy to please not kill him. Jiaka stood on guard to fight with the man, and Seok Muhi, a bit amazed by his energy, smiled and also prepared to fight with the young man, summoning the yin wind to show his power. The girls and the first 2 brothers are thinking about what can happen and think of a way to stop them, but he doesn't know how. Seok Muhi tells the boy that he can kill him without much effort, but he is going to hurt him to see him suffer and beg to spare his life. He will kill him very slowly and launches an attack. Jiaka, after dodging his attack and listening to him, tells him that he doesn't think he can hurt him and tells him to take the fight seriously. The man is amazed, because many warriors have fallen after receiving such an attack, and this boy has avoided it. After some thought, he realizes that this boy is the reason the 5 Peaks fortress is famous in the province, but his thoughts are interrupted by Jiaka's voice, who asks him to take the fight seriously. Seok Muhi smiles and feels that finally, after a long time, he will have an opponent worthy of him, the ruler of Yin Wind. Jiaka hears his name and laughs. He thinks it is a very silly name. Seok Muhi is offended and tells him to watch what he says, because he will regret it. The boy again offends the man, calling him slow, and Seok Muhi, even angrier, launches his Yin Wind Corpse Claw attack, but Jiaka stops him, only with 2 fingers. Seok Muhi does not understand what is going on and remembers the time he spent learning his technique, and that after learning it, He had never lost a fight before, but now, Seok Muhi believes that his only alternative to win is to apply the most lethal of his techniques and tells Gyaka not to blame him, because he asked for it, and when he goes to attack him, Gyaka takes his hand and introduces himself and then tells him that he will not allow him to hurt his friends and attacks him, while his older brother yells at him not to do it.